at home, you might recognize some of this equipment we have around here. We had a sound and light show earlier, but we're not going to do a sound and light show, as the title suggests. We're going to feature the Tesla Coil. Now, the Tesla Coil is probably the less famous of the two, the Van de Graaff versus the Tesla Coil. They're similar in some ways, but very different in other ways. Now, the Van de Graaff is a constant current variable voltage. This too varies the voltage, but this one is an alternating current, whereas that runs a direct current from which it draws its energy through from the very environment that it's operating in. Let's just push that one up, and you've probably seen the hair-raising ways in which these things work. They'll have a charge. Right now, the wing on top of there is charging and discharging. Yeah, but it's finding a ground through the ceiling or through my other grounded point here. But that's not the feature item, so let's put that back in its place. Wait a minute, let's get it charged up and see how long it lasts for the show. It keeps on, holds on to its charge, just to sort of prove our point that the charge is there, it's stuck. Now let's move over to the Tesla Coil. Again, the charge is stuck there, essentially on that wig. It'll slowly dissipate into the air through the ground system or other various places it can. But the Tesla Coil is a continuous plasmic pulsation into the air. And now, you probably think of Tesla, some of you, as the maker of the car company that Elon Musk made. Don't think like that. Elon Musk captures the mad scientist, and he's actually trying to put it into his product, which is worthy of note. But I think Tesla has him beat in a lot of regards. Now, Tesla had a dream, and he matched up with many industrialists through the years to try and bring his dream to the people. His true dream, his biggest one, was to essentially have wireless power for everyone to have. And his notion was free. Well, that didn't please the industrialists quite as much as it might have. But there are so many things that Tesla influenced in the electrical world that it's key that we recognize him for this. Now, during his time, this was prior to the electrical grid going everywhere and you just turned on a switch to make a light. He was essentially working against the one who I see so many times heralded in schools, Thomas Edison, who was a great inventor on his own right, but he was more of a fit for his time to turn his products into money, as it were, and Tesla was more interested in the ideas. You can see that is still charged up. So Tesla was the one who actually decided or promoted this notion when he teamed up with Westinghouse that alternating current was a much better approach than Thomas Edison's direct current. There are a number of reasons. One of the main reasons being that the electrical grid would have been nearly impossible to make with direct current. You have to think about the differences between direct current and alternating current to understand this, perhaps, but some of you understand it, but I'm going to briefly go over that. You can imagine direct current is like leaning on a wall and pushing at some point and push, and that's the amount of power that's available. Sort of another way to think about it is rolling down a hill. The steeper the hill, the more power available. But electrical current is a pulsating current. It kind of goes. I think of it as jab punch, a double jab punch. And it's a lot more efficient than direct current in terms of an electric grid around the nation. And so if we had used the direct current like Edison wanted, we would need power wires the size of pipes, this size to get the kind of demand, whereas now we're running our big cables are about the size of $1 sometimes, or the size of about this some other times, the big cables, the ones that run high tension, big power. So let's honor the man with his inventions and the things he has created. He was the first one. He designed the first hydroelectric power plant. Niagara Falls was his design idea, and that was a really forward-thinking idea. It was actually one of the cleanest energy at the time. It still is. Its problems lie in ecosystem destruction. That was not his concern, nor anyone hardly at the time. So that's one of the things that he was forwarding and sponsoring. Well, he worked in the telegraph industry. And so his notion of having a wireless transmitting communication system is really where we are today with our cell phones. He's sort of was the idea that you could make these pulses and you could send messages wirelessly, because that really was the challenge of the telegraph industry, was how to get wires everywhere. He also was famous for recognizing the spark gap notion, and that's how his coil works. We'll explain that further when we get to that. And that we still use these kinds of things in spark plugs. That's essentially a motor of a car creates a Tesla coil of sorts that creates a spark gap, which fires our engines up. He had created the wireless charging system is kind of his baby there, really. And if those of you who have phone charging systems where you set the phone right on the charge pad, ta-da, that's really Tesla's doing. And I also would like to put a pitch in here for Tesla and not the motor company, in that I believe that the new car charging system will be a similar pad to which we have our phones charging, where you roll over this pad either in a parking spot at your job, or your parking space in a busy city, or better yet, at your home, in your garage, where it can cycle in and out based on the demand of the power grid. So it can be a much more efficient vehicle for getting charge into your car. The truth of the matter is we want to go with electric cars, but the grid just can't handle it at this point. There's no way that we can run all the cars in America electrically right now with the current grid system. Infrastructure, right? Haha, let's go. Let's build some power wires. Okay, so let's get down to the coil itself here and talk about his invention. He created this thing in 1891, and this was his baby. He had a larger version, of course. Our version here is quite small. But there's just it's essentially two coils, and he used a spark gap to oscillate the power. So what he did was you powered up the primary coil, and I probably should make sure it's not plugged in or charged up, but you power up the primary coil, which is actually a capacitor of sorts, and then you flicker it on and up into this secondary coil, and that creates a plasmic orb, as it were, right here. And from that orb, you can create a pulse, which is the key to this thing. And this thing is pulsing at 20,000 to 100,000 hertz, so above the range of hearing. One thing I'm going to tell you before we start up the coil, this is a resonant transformer. So this thing creates quite a lot of voltage and a meager amount of current, although it can get quite hot. Let's look at that firstly, the heat of it. Now, when we fire up the coil, I'm just warning all you people, if we go bleep off the air, everything goes, that's what Tesla coils will give you, because I've had plenty of troubles with other equipment when I've been running the Tesla coil before. So let's fire up the coil. We'll get the primary wind to go, and then this one, now this version has sort of an advancement on Tesla's design. This one has a chip in there, and it also has a MIDI chip, which for those of you that are in the music world realize that this is a chip that sends a musical signal, and that's what we're going to hopefully get to when we get all of our connections made here. But this is going to create a plasmic orb, and I want to show you some of the cool parts of it. Again, if everything goes hey, Pluty, we're back here at the Tesla coil trying to figure out what happened up here. So we're getting some charge into the unit, and it should start firing up pretty soon. There's one primary. There's the plasmic orb we're talking about, and it's actually pretty hot. So we want to be careful with that and not touch that, because that can hurt. That can burn pretty good. But let's put into this this coil right now. Let's put in, we hear a little bit. I think I've got music going into it. Perhaps I don't. Let's just try this. I'm putting 40 hertz into it. And I'm giving it all I got. So what we're doing, rather than the arc spark like Tesla's coil, we're varying the frequency of that, and you can actually watch the orb change. Move that camera in close to that plasmic orb there, because that's the star here. Right under that plasmic orb. And you're going to see how we can resonate that with different frequencies. We're up around 3,600, 5,000 hertz. But down in here, you can see how that orb varies. Let's get some music on here. Let's stop that, because that's just a singular tone. Right now, we happen to be playing. There, we lost it. Bring the sound up here. mic sound in. I think I can hear the mix here. We're going to change the channel to Joe Walsh's Rocky Mountain Way, a song you might be familiar with. Can you bring the sound in? Listen. That mic right up here. Are you getting any bars on your mic? Our coil, I think, is getting hot. We're playing Jeff Beck's Freeway Jam right now here. I'm going to refire the coil because it seems to have a little bit of heat issue here. There it is. We getting bars on that? Anyways, what's happening here is that we're pulsating instead of going a pulsation, we're pulsating and we're creating melodic sounds here. Now our coil is being a little bit challenged. We are actually ionizing very molecules here, and so you can smell the ozone starting to create in this room from this thing. So we're not going to keep it going too long. It looks like we're heating up our coil. So there's the Tesla coil, intermittent Tesla coil right there with music in a very low form, but hopefully we've given homage to the right person here, Nikola Tesla, the Serbian American who brought us our modern current system and some of the best electrical ideas we've ever had. I want to give a shout out to some people who are honoring Tesla coils. First of all, in our own clip in the Boston Museum of Science has a huge Tesla coil that sings fabulous songs with the world's largest Van de Graaff generator in that very same room, and the operator sits in a Faraday cage protected from shock and harm. There's also a band called Architect out of Austin, Texas. I want to give them a shout out because these guys are out there playing with a big Tesla coil, and they got a guy that plays a big Spark guitar. So those are my shout outs. This is my show. Thanks for tuning in. Come by and see us Monday through Saturday, 9:30 to 5, and Sundays 1 to 5. We'll Tesla coil it for you. I see that thing finally, it hasn't quite fully discharged, but we'll bring you some science and some fun.